Here's how you make some delicious and fluffy sandwich bread ready to go from start to finish in 3 hours. It begins with a big ass bowl. We need 5 cups of bread flour. Today we can replace the bread flour with all-purpose. The rule of thumb is we can always replace all-purpose with bread flour, but not bread flour for all-purpose because of our friend protein. There's more protein in bread flour, which means that it's gummier if you use it in the wrong situation, but chewy if you use it in the right situation, like today. If it's your first time doing this recipe, start with 4 cups of flour because it's always easier to add more than take any out. You can also mix and match, which is what I'm doing today, 50% each. You'll notice neither of these has a label, which is why I have to do 50-50. 1/4 cup sugar. Our yeasty friends are like, yeah! Teaspoon salt. Get your favorite spatula and give this 20 stirs to distribute all the molecules. Well done. 2.5 cups milk. If you want to replace this with water, you totally can. It'd just be a slightly different flavor, a little less rich. And 4 tablespoons of butter, which they have very nicely put on the side of the block for us. Cutting up the butter into random chunks, and I popped it in the microwave until it's warm. Warm is just around 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The butter will melt in the milk while I add 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. Sounds like a lot. It's gonna be fine. It's gonna give us a lot of flavor in a very short amount of time, especially when we combine it with the sugar. I'm using instant yeast, so I can just dump in my yeast, and now I'm gonna dump this in with everything else. If I were using active dry yeast, I would need to wait 5 minutes to make sure that this has foam or smells like a dive bar. Give it 10 big stirs, 1 egg. In you go, my friend. 20 big stirs. Wow, that's unappetizing, but it will create something delicious. So you can see there's some chunks of dry flour. So what we're gonna do is 20 spatulettes. A spatulette is a scoop from the bottom, flip and punch. We're gonna do 10 of those. This is a wet dough, but this is too wet. So I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of flour and I'm gonna do 20 spatulettes. Now we've got ourselves less of a goop and more of a extremely wet dough. Cover and let this rest for 5 minutes. Not much has changed. Even after 5 minutes, a little bit of the stretchiness from the gluten is present. Because this dough is so soft, a spatula at this stage might be a little frustrating because it's gonna bend with the dough, and the dough is pretty strong. So what I recommend is doing a spatulette with the spatula, do a spoonchulette, do 5. 1 punch, 2 punch, 3 punch, 4 punch, 5. And even though it seems like you're battling with an alien, you've done a great job and now you can rest. Since this is a no-knead recipe, but the stickiness of the dough can make it a little challenging for anybody with shoulder, wrist, elbow issues, my recommendation, if you have a mixer, is to put everything in the bowl, let it come together for 2 minutes with the dough hook. Once you've done the 2 minutes, let it sit for 5 minutes, then turn it back on to level 1 or 2 for 1 minute. Now you're all caught up. Cover and let sit for 1 hour. It's like an alien. This recipe makes not 1, but 2 loaves. Thus we need 2 vehicles. We want to make sure to avoid the dough sticking to the tin, so give it a good spritz. Just the teeny tiniest amount of flour coax our friend out of her cave. I'm just pawing at her. This makes 2 loaves. We're gonna take something sharp-ish. I've got one of these doohickeys and I've made it wet. Just go straight through. Making it wet keeps it from sticking as much. Because this dough has butter in it, it is a little bit forgiving on sticking, but again, it's not our favorite thing ever. So the best thing you can do is have a spatula in hand to help you move the dough. You can see that even though she's sticking to my hands, as long as I pull my hands away quickly, I'm fine. To shape the dough, we're going to pat, 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 and then we're going to roll her up, scooping it over the side. I'm tucking my fingers in, and I'm not trying to grab her, I'm just basically rolling her. Once the seam is on the bottom, pick her up from the side and drop her into the tin. Now the last thing I want to do is just kind of poke her with my finger to help her get into all 4 corners of the tin. I'm going to pat, pat, pat. And I'm gonna start pulling her in. So you see she's sticking right there, but if I keep pulling, she'll eventually let go. We're gonna let these rest for another 15 minutes. Normally in a recipe, we would let these sit for a lot longer, but because of how much yeast and how much sugar we have in here, they're gonna go wicked fast. Give the top a light spritz. I'm gonna put parchment down and a light towel. That way, even as she puffs up, she won't stick to the parchment or the towel. Turn on the oven to 375. Oven is at temp. Now we're going to brush our little bread friends with an egg scrambled with maybe a teaspoon of water, and I'm gonna paint that over the top very gently. This is called an egg wash, and it helps give the bread a really beautiful, deep brown color and a nice sheen. If you wanted to put a topping on your bread like sesame seeds or poppy seeds, now would be the time to do it because the egg wash will help them stick. Into the oven for 25 minutes. Since we want to leave these in the glass or in the tin and can't take them out to tap them, we're going to stick in something sharp and make sure it comes out clean. Perfect. We're going to let these beauties sit for 20 minutes and cool down so that we don't accidentally smush them back into dough.